Robert Scheer. He's with us, book author of The Pornography of Power. Robert, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
Great to be here.
Good. What brought you to write The Pornography of Power?
Well, you know, I thought, like most people, that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we'd get a peace dividend, the big military spending would over.
Yeah.
George Bush's father, in '92, he gave a speech. He said, I'm cutting the military by 30%.
Sure.
And Dick Cheney was his defense secretary, and everybody seemed on board.
Yeah.
Then you have 9/11, and it's an act by people who don't have arsenal. You can buy it at Home Depot for $3 a piece, these box cutters and razor blades. But if it came the occasion to dust off all these weapon systems, and we now spend more than the rest of the world combined. We spend more in real dollars than we did during the Korean or Vietnam War any time since World War II.
Right.
And so that's why you got my subtitle, How the Defense Hawks Hijacked 9/11 and Weakened America.
Yeah, all right, so I'm going to ask you, how did they weaken America just by the simple fact of the amount of money that's being spent on defense?
Yeah, well, first of all, you're taking resources away from things that could make us stronger, like maybe more translators, maybe better police programs. You know, there's lots of things you could do to fight terrorism. I'm not going to deny that we have enemies. You know, by the way, when George Bush's father cut the military, it wasn't like he was naive or, the guy had been in war and he'd been ambassador to China and he defeated Saddam Hussein and he'd been the head of the CIA. But he said, we don't need this stuff because it's designed to fight an enemy that doesn't exist. So you weaken it by wasting resources. You're taking up over 50% of the discretionary budget, so you don't have money to do these things that both McCain and Barack Obama say they want to do.
Yeah.
You know, so, and also, by the way, I think when you build weapons, you got to find excuses to use them.
Right.
You know, it's not like we're going to keep piling this up without the public getting wise. So they say, wait a minute, where's the enemy? And then you go find enemies and you do something like, why did we go into Iraq? Because as Rumsfeld said, there weren't any good targets in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's fair to say, though, I mean, we do stockpile. Obviously, if something were to happen, we do need munitions. I mean, today we can't wait for it to be made, so we do stockpile munitions. And that would include nuclear arms, too.
Could I just ask you something?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'm all for stockpiling, but we didn't stockpile armor for our troops. We didn't stock the right Jeeps and Humvees that were armored.
Yeah.
That's not true. I mean, I'm all for building what you need to build.
Yeah.
But the Secretary Gates, who actually is now acting a bit sensibly, they'll probably kick him out of the administration.
Yeah.
He just sacked the top military and civilian guys at the Air Force. And not only because they let these loose nukes fly around, but he said we don't need these F-22s that they keep pushing us to build. That's a very complex weapon, stealthy and so forth, that was designed to defeat Soviet fighters that never were built, to evade Soviet radar that was never built. So that doesn't make us stronger.
Yeah, all right. You wouldn't agree that we haven't stockpiled munitions?
Of course we have to stockpile munitions. We have to stockpile lots of things, medicines and everything else. But my point is that these high-tech weapons have no relation in asymmetrical war to fighting people. Why do you need 2 nuclear submarines a year at $2.5 billion a piece to defeat people who don't have a rowboat? Come on. I mean, because Lieberman wants them for Connecticut because his job's connected with it, This is what Eisenhower warned about when he talked about the military-industrial complex. It's got a life of its own.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but we do need nuclear submarines. Let's face it, you've got China now. Now it's discovered that China's building nuclear submarines. At some point, we've got to match.
Okay, sir.
We have to match, don't we?
No, come on. Now, first of all, we have a huge submarine force, very good.
Of course we do, the best in the world.
The Russians and the Chinese have subs that leak so badly they don't take them out of port. The Defense Department is required by law to tell Congress what's going on with China, okay? The last report for 2007 says it will take China until the end of the decade to become a mid-level regional power.
Yeah.
Okay, and their focus is on Taiwan. So where is China now? The Kuomintang, the people who fled China, who now run Taiwan, their guy is the president. Their leader, the Kuomintang, went to the mainland and said, we have a new chapter of peace. We're not going to war. The new president, the new leader of Taiwan, he's all for direct flights to the mainland. Taiwan is the second biggest investor in the mainland, and the Defense Department report said China's whole military focus is on Taiwan.
Yeah.
And what are we doing? We're running up a debt in part to pay for these weapons to counter the Chinese, and the Chinese are getting the interest on the debt.
Yeah.
That's a bizarre circular arrangement.
You know,
and why would the Chinese attack us anyway when they're the main prop for our dollar right now and they got so much invested here?
Yeah, I don't know if China's going to attack us anytime soon, but wouldn't you agree that they are rising as a military threat?
No, I think China's doing. You know what? I think the real struggle here in the world is what was defined as a struggle between Bush and his father.
Yeah.
Bush's father's New World Order was a plan to trade, to compete in the world, to extend our influence that way. And this guy, George W., has gone back to the old imperial model, control the oil and everything that is discredited. That's why the French, the Germans, the Spanish, everybody has run away from that model. So here we are protecting the oil fields and the shipping lanes and everything else, and the Chinese are going around making their deals.
All right. You're absolutely right. The French did run. Robert, can you stay after the break?
Sure.
All right, stay with us. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. We've got Robert Scheer with us here today, a book author of The Pornography of Power, How Defense Hawks Hijacked 9/11 and Weakened America. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. It's my pleasure to have Robert Scheer with us here today. He's book author of The Pornography of Power, How Defense Hawks Hijacked 9/11 and Weakened America. Robert, all right. You know, Robert, I hear this all the time. We're in there. We're in Iraq for oil. It's oil. War for oil. War for oil. Are we in there for oil? If we are, God, can we bring some of it back?
Well, it was the dumbest thing. But they you know, all I'm doing is quoting what the administration people said. It was Paul Wolfowitz who said the oil would pay for the war and the occupation. I didn't invent that. And I agree with you. I mean, it's bizarre. We've had a 5-fold increase in the price of oil since this guy's been president.
Yeah.
And this is what I was trying to say before, you know, about imperialism, the old model. It just doesn't work. You know, you're protecting. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're protecting the pipelines and you know and everything else, and the Chinese are going around making these deals everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, the Chinese economy is not hurting. They're not going into a recession right now. They seem to be doing quite well.
Yeah, they're doing everything they can to try
and they
to
don't
slow
have
the
any
growth
oil. They don't own any oil. They haven't conquered any oil. They don't seem to care about it. You know, they're following a free market model.
Yeah.
You know, and what about Vietnam, by the way? That was another communist country we were supposed to be real worried about. And China and Vietnam are now competing, for shelf space at Costco and Walmart.
Yeah, Vietnam was a bad deal. You know, a lot of the peaceniks back then wanted us out, and they protested, rightfully so. God bless America. And we pulled out, and look what happened. A lot of people, citizens, were slaughtered when we got out of there. It was a mess. How are we supposed to pull out of Iraq?
Let me ask you a question. First of all, we were in Vietnam supposedly because if we didn't find them there, we had to find them somewhere else. Okay, you know, President Nixon, by the way, comes out looking pretty good in my book. Doesn't look so good on Vietnam. He went and made peace with Red China, with Mao Zedong, with Zhou Enlai, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he escalates the war in Vietnam. Now, come on. And by the way, you know, you're talking about the boat people and all that. We could have gotten out in a much more orderly way. And who paved the way for normalization of relations with Vietnam? It was John McCain.
Okay.
And John Kerry. No? You remember that?
Yeah, all right. So how are we supposed to get out of Iraq?
We got to get out the same way. You know, you put your troops on one way or another on these ships and planes, and you get them out.
What about all the civilians? They're going to get slaughtered. You know, there's
you don't get out in 24 hours. Even if you announce right now you wanted to get out, you can get out in an orderly way. But what's been happening...
I agree. And that's the way it has to be, though.
Yeah, let me just ask you a question. Sure. You know, we're in Iraq supposedly for our security, okay?
Yeah.
And our president has told us Iran is the main threat. They're developing a nuclear weapon. Their power... What has happened? We go in Iraq, we knock out their historic enemy, you know, in Iraq, and what do? They're now the biggest power in the region. They go from Hezbollah and Lebanon.
It's not good. It's not good.
And Gaza, and their surrogates are in the green zone. Look, Maliki, the guy we put in power in Iraq, was in Tehran yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And he says, "I got your back."
What do we do?
Attacking you from Iraq.
What do
we
say
that?
Yeah. What do we do when Iran develops the nukes? They're saying everything's for peace. You know, honestly, I can't believe that.
We're not going to do anything against Iran. I'll tell you why. Because they can make life miserable.
Yeah.
For us in Iraq right now. That's their surrogates. These guys lived there for 10, 20 years under the Ayatollahs. That's the guys we've put in power.
Yeah.
You know, and so our options now with Iran are extremely limited for just that reason. This was a dumb policy. But, you know, my book is really about, you know, whatever you think about the Iraq War, you still don't need these weapons. I mean, hell, you know, Gates, our Secretary of Defense, just sacked the top, you know, guys in the Air Force. Why? Among other things, they were pushing the F-22, which you just don't need.
Yeah. Robert, we're out of time. Thanks for being on today. Where can we find the book?
Bye-bye. What?
Where can we find the book? Barnes & Noble?
Any bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere.
Fantastic. Robert Scheer, book author of Pornography of Power. Thanks for being with us here today. Appreciate it. There you have it, Robert Scheer, folks. Pornography of Power. Interesting, without a doubt. And we didn't put the Ayatollah in power, by the way. They took over. It was the Shah before that. Nonetheless, get a copy of the book today. Now,